Hey everybody, checking back in on the cryptocurrency space. We're going to look at Ethereum, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Golem as usual. It's Wednesday, July 12th, just before 11 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to try and pick it up where we left off the last video, if you saw that last night. If not, check it out if you want a little bit of a recap. And again, even though obviously that time frame has passed, it is worth checking back in on that and potentially learning from things in the future. So what we were looking at on Ethereum on the 4-hour time frame was the similar setup that we had to the previous all-out dump that we had a really nice bounce off of. So we were watching that pattern. We saw the low. This is the 4-hour chart that I'm on. We saw the low. We saw the bounce. We saw the pullback and a higher low, and then the bulls took off. And we noted the volume, and the volume was not there in this pattern, but the pattern itself was very similar, where we saw the low, the bounce attempt, we pulled back, and we formed that higher low last night. And that's right before that happened is when I was making the video and pretty much saying we absolutely must hold this low level, form a higher low, and then try and bounce from there. And this candlestick was really the saving grace, this bullish reversal doji, or excuse me, not doji, a hammer. And that was that higher low. And we were looking at the MACD cross, right? So the MACD cross previously on that bounce that had that significant follow through, we saw that MACD cross occur fairly shortly after this candlestick, very familiar looking hammer, and then we saw the follow through to the upside on that MACD cross. So as soon as that happened, it was a lot more clear. Okay, this is a very similar pattern. Not only did it look similar, but the same indicators are doing the same things at the same time. The only difference is it's not as magnified, so there is not as much volume, and it's not as much, there's not much power, not as much power behind it, but it's still a powerful move, and there are gains to be had, obviously. So the volume spike really occurred here when we were seeing the bulls recover, and can we break to higher highs? Can we break the high of our original bounce attempt? Because that shifts that short-term trend. Now we have our lower high still in this pattern. Our higher low and a higher high is what shifts things. So the bull volume poured in on that higher high, and we were very overbought on the shorter-term time frames running into those resistances. And I'm specifically talking about 213 and 216.50. And you could tell as soon as we approached those levels, seeing how overbought we were, but seeing the buys at the ask continually come in, very significant amounts, and keep the price propped up. That was definitely significant in terms of seeing the bulls able to follow through here with this volume and get that break to that higher high. And that's what let us know that, okay, this is a very similar bounce to the last time, and we're going to see some follow through here, and there's going to be some trades to the upside. So what I've been doing the past 2 days, where I've been, initially I entered a poor entry on ETH just in terms of underestimating the strength of the bears to the downside. So I initially got in the mid 220s, and then I was doing a bunch of flipping on the way down to average down my cost base. So was able to get out with a profit with the move that we've seen here. And we had the target in the video. I think I said 230 in 36 hours, within 36 hours. So we hit 228.88, and it took about 42 hours. And I will admit, I was thinking okay, maybe I'm wrong down here. But that really strong bounce, I didn't think that the bulls would be able to pull it off that in that early morning, and they did. So was able to benefit from that. So the volume the past 2 days has come in for the bulls at nighttime. So I am paying attention to that because we are still potentially looking for some upside. We have some inside bars here. Actually, we did not see an inside bar there. We had a little higher high, but there is still potential for more upside tonight, even though our target was pretty much hit. Not exactly, but close enough for me. But what I'm watching here is this downtrend resistance line where we have this 4-hour chart seeing multiple tops reject right at these levels, and the bounce is approaching here. And on the overall bigger picture, it's very clearly we could reject anywhere around here, and it would still be a long-term lower high. So we got over our little short-term bounce there. But in terms of changing the longer-term trend, I'm looking up at 253. That's a long way to go. So look on the daily time frame, and we see the bullish reversal candlestick that has formed today, and that is just 1 day. We have not seen 2 green days in a row since the end of June. So this is an important follow-through day. We'll see if we get this bullish volume showing up overnight. Looking in a little bit more detailed on the hourly time frame, we see just a tightening range. We have our high, low, the pullback, lower high. We're seeing an equilibrium pattern form here. This uptrend line doesn't look good on this time frame because I drew it on the 15-minute time frame where it looks really good. And that's an uptrend line that I'm paying attention to and watching this range tighten. So here's that equilibrium, high, low, lower, high, higher, low, sideways trading, volumes dropping off. There's about to be a trade here, and knowing my luck, I'll still be recording and I will miss it, but I'm going to speed along here because there is a trade opportunity approaching. And if we get a bull break right now, the signal for me would be either, I would probably use this one up here. I'd use 225.61, break that level, and I would be comfortable enough with the momentum and the trend of the bulls that I would be comfortable that the break of 228.88 would occur and we'd make a move to 230. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how that plays out. So let's check in a little bit on Bitcoin. And Bitcoin was the indicator, another one that I saw overnight that made me really confident in the bulls. And it was a double bottom to the penny. And when you see a double bottom to the penny in a, here we go, in a $2,200 instrument, that is noteworthy. So we held that double bottom to the penny, and then we saw the bulls show up for 16 hours in a row and break that lower high pattern where we have 224.10 as resistance, and we only got over it by $5. So I would still be a little bit cautious here because that is fairly close to a double top, and the bulls still are right there, so they're looking for some follow through. But once we hit that double bottom, that lets you know, okay, this is clearly a support that's being defended, and if we're going to bounce, now's where this bounce is going to happen. And as I was in Ethereum and seeing this happen on Bitcoin, I became a lot more confident because it was that exact level and because I was ensured that the bulls were going to, put up a fight here. So Bitcoin on the daily time frame as well is forming that bullish reversal candlestick. We'll see how much bounce we get. Had this uptrend line in the other video as well from these lows of these lower wicks on the last dumps, and we did bounce just above that level. So really throughout this whole process, what has kept me from panicking, I was in a red position for longer than I would want to have been, and I did miss out on a decent amount of upside opportunity. I did capture some of it, but it was the 4-hour chart that kept me from panicking. I was never concerned about my position, and it was really difficult for me to try and convey that really lack of concern to other people who, are seeing all this weakness and seeing fear and, in the red maybe in their trades. But just knowing that 4-hour chart was so oversold and knowing historically what has happened in the past, it made me confident that we would be able to see a short-term bounce in the near-term future, and that would allow us to, get some profit or exit from any positions that went against us. So where we stand from here, the daily time frame has a lot of work to do in terms of breaking any kind of trend. At this point, they're just trying to hold this uptrend. We could draw a downtrend resistance line. And again, I'm drawing over some shorter time frames, so it's getting a little crowded on this chart. But that's about where I'd put that downtrend resistance line. So we can see the range is tightening here as well, and we could see a clear break sometime in the next week or two. So let's go into the shorter term here on the hourly time frame, seeing similar action, but we're close to a bull break actually here as well. So this would make me pay even more attention to Ethereum. I haven't been trading Bitcoin as much as the other two. I feel like the gains are better than the other two. I haven't sat down and calculated the percentages. But just in terms of what I'm seeing in terms of the price action and the movement, I do like trading Litecoin and Ethereum better. And I did flip Litecoin this morning as well. So what I am looking at on Bitcoin is this key resistance right here of that 24.15, because we want to break that little double top. And you could, this could be the psychology of the cup and handle pattern where you have the left side and the consolidation and then the right side and then the little handle and then maybe a breakout. So watching close for that as well. Cup and handle pattern is one of the most misdiagnosed patterns that I see. And really people love to draw it up and say, oh, we have a cup and handle pattern forming when it really doesn't fit the criteria. And this one even is not the exact textbook definition. And I don't really stick to textbook definitions because things resonate different with me. And, everybody has their own little style of things. And if something's technically, this wouldn't be a doji because we didn't open and close at the same exact level. But I'm going to call that a doji. So for here, the left side of the cup wants to be higher than the right side of the cup because the psychology that's going on is you are unable to break the left side of that resistance and hit that higher high. That's what leads to the profit taking and consolidation, and then the bulls showing back up and after that consolidation and almost like reestablishing themselves and making another attempt and getting through that level and breaking out. So we would have to see another volume spike here. In order for that to happen, we'd have to see some fairly significant volume like we saw back here, these amounts. And that might give the bulls the momentum to get through that level. And again, that would make me more confident in the names that are correlated to seeing what Bitcoin is doing. So here on Litecoin, again, the daily time frame is very, very strong. We're still in a higher low pattern. All these drawings are on the shorter term time frame, so don't let that confuse you. Let's look at the 4-hour time frame. I've got a clear downtrend resistance, very similar to Ethereum's 4-hour downtrend resistance line, and we have already rejected from it. And this was a nice clear signal that the top was in. After a 3 candlestick, these are 4-hour candlesticks, a solid bounce, that's a very clear bearish reversal. Either you could call it a gravestone doji, you could call it a inverted hammer, whatever you want to call it. It is a big upper wick of profit taking and a weak close, and then we followed through to the downside pretty significantly over the next 4 hours. Granted, the bulls did buy those dips with those nice lower wicks, but exiting up there allowed you to make a re-entry to the downside, or on that pullback to the downside. So the bulls are seeing a decent move, but I'm watching this longer term pattern where we've got the almost a down, I wouldn't call it a descending triangle because the support line isn't really established. This isn't valid enough for me at this point. Only these touches have hit it. If we were to pull back and touch that level again and continue to tighten, that would make it a more significant and valid trend line, or a support line, I should say. But watching very closely, because this pattern is indicating to me that we could very easily see this be the top of this bounce for now and then pull back towards this level. With the way these bounces have been shrinking and seeing these lower highs set, that is something I would be aware of and cautious of. That's why I'm still, I'm moving in and out fairly quickly still, as I usually like to do, but still always cautious. So this support line, along with hitting these levels, it was a previous resistance. So that adds validity to me, and that's why I put it there in the first place. This previous resistance where we rejected and pulled back, that's now pretty much the exact level that we did bounce off of and didn't see any candlesticks close below that level. So that does add some validity to this line, and we will keep an eye on it going forward. A little bit more zoomed in on Litecoin on the 1-hour time frame. And those same lines are up. They're not drawn as perfectly, again, because I did draw it on the 4-hour time frame. So keep that in mind whenever you see, or whenever you're drawing on a chart. The things look differently the more detailed you get, and the trend lines then don't make sense. If I were to look at this chart, I would say this is a poorly drawn trend line, but that's because it's from the 4-hour time frame. So don't let that confuse you when you are drawing out on your charts. And checking in on Ethereum right now, it looks like I need to start paying attention. If we were to see, so I said the move that I want to see the Ethereum break is 225.50 and 225.61, but if I saw the break of this candlestick right here of 222.46, that's essentially a heads up to me. That's saying to me, get ready, start paying attention to volume, watch this MACD, and let's see if we can get a bull move up here to head to some higher highs. So I'm watching for that little break as an initial signal. We'll see if we can get another bull break tonight. Again, the past 2 nights we've had volume. Sorry, I'm zoning out a little bit here, but I'm trying to establish my game plan as I speak. So let's check in on Golem. We got Golem. I like talking about the little green dude. It's fun for me to imagine when I talk about the charts. I am pronouncing it wrong. But sorry. So Golem dumped big time, and it was a pretty brutal dump, and we took out a lot of support levels. This was a big one for me, and let's put a line up there just to see how it ended up breaking. If I had a support line in there, I'd put it so the candlestick doesn't close below it, and actually we did hold that support line, so I'm glad I drew that out, because visually it looked like that broke lower, which it did break lower, but you can see again it's the close of the candlesticks that I'm caring about, and we perfectly held that support level, and we're trying to bounce. At this point, this bounce is not giving me the warm and fuzzies in terms of making me confident that the bulls are showing back up. Again, I'm only doing this chart because I've consistently been doing it in these videos. I'm almost not checking during the day, which is very odd for me, but I am truly looking long on this name, so I'm only half concerned with what the price action is doing right now. And we have seen a nice little 3-day bounce, and it is from oversold conditions. And we have to see, in my opinion, because this isn't really a very convincing bounce, it is still just another lower high. We have to see that higher low form and then that higher high, just like we saw in the 4-hour time frame for Ethereum and for Bitcoin and all those breakouts on the 4-hour. It was the higher low and the higher high. That's what we need on the daily time frame here to start to turn the momentum around a bit. So let's look at the 4-hour time frame. And again, there's not a whole lot going on here. There was a nice bounce opportunity, but in my opinion, the ones to be traded for these bounce opportunities are the big 3, as I call them. And that is because I think there's nice opportunity and liquidity. But if you're doing well trading these altcoins, by all means, stick with it. Just not my style at the moment. So that's what we're looking at heading into tomorrow, and not sure how long I'll keep these daily videos up. I just really like the progression of these trades and how they have played out. And obviously it's been a lot of volatility and activity. And yeah, I'll keep checking in. I appreciate everybody watching. And again, remember to comment and leave me those requests for what you want me to go over in a video regarding the trading strategies of cryptocurrencies. Thanks again. Have a good night.